When I first started dancing on Soul Train, I was so young, thinking about iconic, and in the future, that wasn't even in my vocabulary. Now that I look back on it, I see how much it did for the Black community and how much it did to raise our visibility into the homes of everyday Americans. My name is Daphne Harvey, and I was a Soul Train dancer from 1977 to 1983. I was born here in Los Angeles, California. I come from a huge family in New Orleans, the Domino family, with deep roots in music and jazz. And my uncle was one of the staples in the jazz scene at the turn of the century back in the 20s in New Orleans. My uncle, Gus Domino, he taught people like Louis Armstrong how to play the saxophone. So he was kind of behind the scenes. Back in those days, my cousin is the famous Fats Domino. My uncle, Freddie Domino, ran Fats's band. So we have really, really deep music veins. My tears feel like rain. Ain't that a shame? I never really was a trained technical dancer, but coming from the family that I had, there was music everywhere. We had a large family, so naturally out of that, there was also dance. My uncles, get that little girl out there, let me see her dance. So I was just that one who always had that musicality, that always had that spunk, that just loved to move with the music. And that's kind of how I started dancing. I went to Hamilton High School on the west side of LA. And of course, I was a cheerleader, I was a song leader, I was in student council, I was everywhere. But where I really started to love dance was in high school. I started to take, some dance classes, and that's kind of how I made my way to Soul Train. My cousins and we used to dance a lot. We used to make up our steps and go in the garage and make up dances off of the songs and pretend like we were the artists. And so we had this little group. We called ourselves the 20th Century Foxes. So we had these little T-shirts, and we used to go to all the little high school dances because we went to Catholic school at first. We used to go to little dances at Sarah High and St. Albert's, which is one of the elementary junior high schools that I went to. And then there was also this little preteen, if you would, club called the Consolidated Plaza over in Baldwin Hills where we used to go. It was like right near Maverick's Flat, but we couldn't get in there because we were too young. We were like 14, 15. We wear our little T-shirts. We thought we were something. And so we would go and do our steps. And that's kind of what we did for fun. Well, we always watched Soul Train as kids, but when we were younger, we really never thought about actually going on the show. But we had gone to a little party somewhere, my cousins and I, and someone had mentioned, there's going to be a Soul Train taping tomorrow. We were, all ear hustling like, it is. Like, well, where is it going to be? And so we found out where it was. So we put on our little shirts and we went down there, and there were like a gazillion people out there trying to get in. And there was this guy walking through the crowd, tapping people on the shoulder. You can go inside, you can go inside. His name was Chuck. And so when he got to us, he looked at us. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to regret this, but I'm going to let you guys in here because I want to see what you can do. So he let us go in, and if we wouldn't have had those crazy yellow shirts on, we probably would have never gotten in that day. At the end of that first day, Chuck came up to me and he said, I want you to come back tomorrow, but I need you to lose that shirt. I'm like, okay. When I first started dancing on Soul Train, it was a little intimidating because I was young. I had just turned 15. I see all these people in here that I had seen on TV, and I'm there by myself, didn't know anybody. So the first couple times I was there, I danced on the floor. The second month I was there, I was asked to do the scramble board. And at that time, I didn't have a dance partner. I was just dancing with, random whoever was there. So I did the scramble board. board.
And we'd like for you to meet two of our Soul Train dancers. Hi.
Hi, Daphne Davis.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember going up and getting ready to do the scramble board, and there was a woman named Pam Brown. She came over and she looked at me, and she looked at my partner who was with me. She's like, do you guys know what this says? And so I looked at it, and I did. But they have this little 30-second clock or whatever time that used to go around when you were doing the board. And I think in the early years, there were a lot of people that didn't get it. And it's like, this is probably not a good look. So they made sure that you were comfortable and you kind of knew what it was before that clock got started. At that time, they would do the Soul Train line at the end of each day. It kind of changed differently as we went on. And so that Saturday, I was asked to do the scramble board. And then that Sunday, I was sitting in the stands and people were lining up to do the Soul Train line. I was sitting in the stand and Chuck was pointing at me. He was going like this, you. And I'm looking behind me. I'm like, who's he talking to? And he's like, no, you, come down here. I went down there and he put me with somebody. I can't even remember who it was. And that's when I did my first Soul Train line. I really didn't technically have a signature dance on the show. I was just out there having a good time, doing whatever I felt like doing, not necessarily a signature dance. Like some girls had their little shimmy or some had their little whacking. I was just smiling and having fun. I used to dance with a guy named Larry Bobcat Jeffries. Bobcat was really cool. He was a magnificently trained dancer. I danced with him at the beginning. He was a little bit older than I was, and, we just kind of didn't mesh together as partners, not because we didn't like each other, but just visually. So eventually, the producers put him with another fabulously trained dancer, Aretha, who had kicks to here and back. I just loved watching her dance. And then I ended up with Eric Red, who was more close to my age.
Eric Red.
Towards the end of my Soul Train career, my dance partner was James Benjamin. When I first started dancing on there, I was like 15 years old. I went through for 7 years after that. So I could just kind of see myself evolve over the years. When I first started, we used to wear these little shoes called jellies, a little t-shirt and jeans. And over time, I saw myself evolving as I grew. I finally got to the point where I was wearing heels. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dancing in heels for 9 hours a day. But, over time, I just kind of progressed into a little bit more grown-up fashion. I was never one of those girls that was known for what she wore. I was known, people would say, for my hair because it used to bounce around a lot when I danced. And back then, it was right when people didn't really get their hair blow dried and all of that. And I had this stylist from Chicago, and he was one of the first people in LA to start blow drying your hair and all that. And people used to say, oh, the producers, they just love you because it's Johnson products and your hair is always bouncing and it never gets messed up. And so that's what I was kind of known for, I think, in the early years. As I got older, I started experimenting a little bit more with my hair, with braids and other styles. Some of my favorite dancers were like Jeffrey and Jody, Tyrone and Sharon. There was a little guy, little Joe Chisholm. I used to like to watch those. And what was so amazing was probably the third time I was there, they were still dancing on the show. I got to dance on the center riser. Jeffrey and Jody were there, Sharon, and a couple of other people. And then Chuck said, okay, you guys go up there. So we were in our little back spot in the corner on the back of the riser. But I happened to be able to dance on the riser with the people that I used to watch. And they were like amazing dancers. And I'm this little kid who liked to dance up there having fun. So that was really nice. I've had a couple memorable moments on Soul Train. I think the first one, like I mentioned before, I come from a musical family, and my brother was in a band back in the early 80s. It was called Kiddo.
Leroy Davis.
And his band performed on Soul Train. And I was so happy because my mom and some of my family had come. And at the time, Chuck was like, get up there. I want you to dance with your brother on the stage. So I was on the side riser. His band was performing on the center riser. And I thought that was great that I could be dancing while his band was performing.
Okay, we're back with Eric Red and Daphne Davis, and they claim to have a routine that they claim is finished. And it better be finished. Because we do not allow unfinished routines.
And the other fun moment that I had, I was dancing with Eric Red, and Don used to do this thing where they would spotlight certain dancers, and you would come up and you make up your little routine, and he'd be on the center riser, everybody's on the floor, and he'd come up and talk to you, and then you do your routine. And he would be all like, nobody mess up, because if you mess up, they had this prize, believe it or not. There was $50. You know, $50 back then, that was some money. So he's like, you do a good job, we're gonna pay you $50. Of course, I got up there and forgot half the routine, messed up. So after the routine, Don comes up there.
Congratulations. Well, you made about 10 mistakes, but it was so minor that I didn't have the heart to come up here and drag you off.
You messed up a little bit, didn't you? I'm like, well. He said, you still get the $50. But it was fun to be able to do that spotlight dance. So that was cool. People saw me on Soul Train and asked me to participate in different things. For example, I was asked to participate in the Miss Watts beauty pageant. I won that pageant. I went on to participate in the Miss California pageant representing Watts. That was an opportunity that I got from Soul Train. Same thing with the Miss Inglewood pageant. I didn't win that one. I got runner-up. But it opened the doors for a lot of different opportunities. I did some modeling, both print modeling. I also was a cover girl for a cosmetic line called Noir-Jolie Cosmetics back in the day. So Soul Train kind of opened the door for those kinds of opportunities, not so much dance opportunities because it wasn't my dream to be a professional dancer, but those were the kinds of things that kind of brought themselves to me from Soul Train.
My name is Daphne Davis, and I know you're a very accomplished writer, producer, and singer, but have you ever thought about doing any acting?
Well, Daphne, yes, I have.
During the whole time, I was a full-time student at USC. So right near the end of when I started to graduate, there were so many things that were going on that I just felt it was time for me to move on to the next phase of my life. I graduated from USC with a degree in business. Then I went on to work in the entertainment industry, not in front of the camera, but I learned from Don that a lot of the decisions were made behind the camera, so I started working on the business side. I worked for Warner Music, for Universal Music, and then I ended my career working for NBC Universal, where I was the senior vice president responsible for $20 billion in spend, managing all the money that went out the door for the company. Every space, every room that I went into, I was the only Black person, and most times the only woman. So it's really interesting because you really have to present yourself with an air of confidence and an air that I belong in this room. What do you want? Why are you here? People will try you, so you just gotta let them know. And once you let them know, it's good, but it was a good opportunity for me. I used my influence at the company to start some programs to help bring in Black businesses. By the time I left, I retired a couple months ago. We were doing $4 billion in spending a year with Black businesses because of a program that I set up, an accelerator program called EDGE, where we would bring in Black companies, train them how to do business with entertainment, introduce them to studio executives, and also we had a connection with USC and Ghetto Film School in New York, and we put them together to learn how to work in the entertainment industry. My overall experience with Soul Train, it was just a great family environment. I hear people say, oh, the girls used to fight over being on the riser, or they used to fight to get camera time. That wasn't my experience, because pretty much Chuck ran the show, and he's like, okay, you go on this riser, you go on that riser. There were 3 spaces in the front, 2 spaces in the back of the center riser. You stand in the middle, you stand here. So there was no fighting because he told you where you were going to be. It was just a fun time. It was a great time being around Black people doing big things in an industry where we weren't always welcome. I was glad that I was there at the time I was there. From 77 to 83, those were some good times.
Baby, you make my love come down.